So now that we've gotten past the solicitation, now it's time for you to go into FireLight and start working on getting your application submitted. And so, um, obviously, the majority of you have already been in FireLight, have done an app or two. For those of you that have not, Amy and I do strongly encourage that you get into FireLight, you play around with it, do an application on yourself to kind of get used to the data entry, the look, the field, everything like that. Just don't submit it. Don't go all the way through the signatures. But um, we feel that when you take the time to go through the data entry and understand it's a much better experience when you're there with your client. And then it's really important that, the needed documentation is added prior to submitting an application. When I say required documentation, we're meaning things such as the client's unexpired government issued identification. For applications that are replacing the most recent statement, sometimes we also require the illustration. So items such as that. And to go one step further, when you're attaching that information, it's very important that that documentation or those requirements are uploaded via a PDF format. Our systems are only compatible with PDF, so we can't accept pictures or HAIX or JPEGs. So, it's very important to take the time to go ahead and convert on your side when you're getting ready to upload, and make sure that this documentation is attached to the case. And in FireLight, the document upload feature is under the other actions tab, which is in the upper right-hand corner. You just press on other actions and then the drop down will appear and it'll say documents, and you click on that and it'll walk you through the steps. If any of you are having trouble with that, you're always more than welcome to, get in contact with AMBA for assistance. And if somebody is not available to assist you, Amy and myself are always available.
Hey Jennifer, I'm gonna jump in on this one. This is where, last night I, stepped in a little
Yeah.
bit here and kind of just, want to, team, make sure like when you are, submitting an application, we want to make sure that we have all the information attached to that application, right? Whether it's account statements, whether it's driver's license, if it's transfer paperwork from another company, we want to make sure that we have that submitted. And what Jennifer was explaining as to where you can go on the application to make sure that you attach those PDFs, right? PDFs. Those are important. So, if you do have a little bit of challenge with that, that's okay. Reach out to your FML, reach out to your TDL, reach out to, myself, Ron and Bonnie, and, the FIA team is out there writing applications. So, we're on the back end making sure that we support you when you're submitting those applications. So when they do get sent over to Legacy, they are in good order, right? Here's where we see a little bit of that not in good order. So we want to make sure on the front end we know that we're attaching, the proper forms so we can get that process started of the application, so we can get it issued quicker and you can get paid. So if you're like, wow, I really don't know where that's at, just reach out to, myself, reach out to your TDLs, reach out to your FMLs. We'll show you where you can go to be able to, attach, whatever documentation in PDF form that you need to that application. So when it gets sent over to Jennifer and Amy, it's in good order and they're not having to go back and ask for that. And then that just delays the process. So we are your first point of contact when you're having a little bit of trouble, when you don't know, how to attach or where to attach it. Turn it back to you.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. And then, so once we get an application to 100%, you've attached your needed documentation in FireLight. Now it's time to move on to the signature signing ceremony. And so, totally understand in this day and age, majority of solicitation is happening virtually or not face to face. So within FireLight, there is the function to be able to email signatures to your client. And when you're doing so, you're going to decline e-signatures and you're going to send an email request. And when you're doing so, there's different signer rules in some circumstances. So if you have joint owners, joint annuitants, you're going to see a signer role of owner, joint owner, and producer. So it's very important to understand that each signer role needs to be sent its own separate email. So if obviously owner and joint owner are always going to be two different individuals, you're going to send one request to the owner, you're going to send one request to the joint owner. You're not going to lump them in together. By lumping them in together, the owner will sign in both roles. And that's where Amy and I typically come back and say, oops, something happened here. We're going to need Jane Doe's signature as joint owner on all of these documents. So it's very important to be aware of the different signer roles and ensure that you're sending a signature request separately for each of those roles. Now, once your client has signed the documentation, you will get an email from FireLight, and that email is basically going to tell you, hey, your client has completed their signatures. You might want to go back in the system. And so it's very important that when you get that notification, you log back into FireLight and you officially submit the case. So FireLight is not going to submit it on its own. You have to tell it to do so. And so you'll need to go back in and finish the process. And so by not doing that, your application sits there in limbo. And, you know, Amy and I do our best at least once, twice, sometimes 3 times a week to go in and do a sweep of the system to make sure that there's no applications sitting out there that might be ready for submission. But the key is once you get that email, go back into the system and hit that submit button.
And you're going to know that it's submitted when it says pending review. If it says client signatures complete or signatures complete, that means it hasn't been submitted. The only time it's been submitted is when it says pending review.
Yep. Okay, Amy, did you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the process once an application is submitted via FireLight and what that life cycle of the application looks like?
Sure. So once you submit an application, we get it in our queue. We say our turnaround time is about 24 hours, but we usually are same day unless you've submitted it late in the day. We review it for suitability for not in good order requirements. If we're good to go, we send you an approval email with the contract number in the subject line. Any FYIs, sometimes we have some FYIs in there. And if it's not in good order, then we send you a formal suitability inquiry. Again, the subject line has the policy number, and then we list out the requirements needed. And Jen and I try to be very, very specific, referencing page numbers, you know, and question numbers, and when we need a client signature, when we need an agent correction and an agent initial. So we try to be very, very detailed on these emails so that it's the easiest for you to follow. Of course, if you have questions, you can let us know, but we do really try to be very detailed in our email so that it's very clear to you when you get the email. Once it's approved, we upload our formal approval and we submit that formally to Emeritus for processing. So once Jen and I have approved suitability, that goes to Emeritus. Emeritus then does all the processing. They, review it, new business, data enter. They send out the transfer. They do transfer follow-up. They issue the policy. And then, of course, policyholder service maintenance is all done with Emeritus. So once you get approval from Jen and I, unless there's, which we'll talk about at a later time, escalation, any processing or status updates need to be directed to Emeritus.
Okay.
Hey, Jen and Amy, I'm gonna chime in here again. So, team, it's a couple of things there I want to point out is just make sure that you're paying attention to your emails and you're responding to your email in a timely manner, and make sure that when you do respond, you want to always make sure that that main email address is attached, not directly to Amy, not directly to Jennifer. You want to make sure that we have that service team inquiry email address that you all have. It's in that key contacts that we sent out. That way we know once you send a response in that it's going to be picked up by the team. So the team's going to be able to pick it up. If Jen's out or Amy's out, we want to make sure that those responses, they get picked up right away. So just make sure that you're replying back to all and not just specifically to Amy or to Jennifer. That way we know that it's going to get picked up. But make sure that we're responding back to our emails as quickly as you can. So turn it back.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe. Wanted to touch a little bit on record retention. Most states require you as the agent to keep record of your annuity sales for at least 5 years. And that includes, the application that was solicited, any information that you gathered as part of your fact finding during the solicitation, key pieces of, the policy that maybe you took copies of, and so on and so forth. And the states have stated that records can be in an electronic format. Microfilm, I don't know who does microfilm anymore, but hey, maybe somebody does. You can send yourself a fax, whatever, or even original copies, right? It's very important to understand that FireLight and Emeritus are not your record-keeping repository. Specifically, records in FireLight are purged after 60 days. So based on the create date, so let's say you create an application in FireLight today, 60 days from today, when you go back in, whether you've submitted the app or not, that application is going to be purged in the system. You'll see that you created something, but you will not be able to access it. And so if any of you have any, questions with respect to record retention rules and how that's, going, we strongly encourage you to contact AMBA Home Office to talk about their procedures regarding the record retention aspect.
Yeah. I'll jump in here again too. So this is another one of them. So the policies, all your business addresses are listed at the Austin office, right? So all the policies after they've been issued go into Austin, and then Ed Tanzer and what he does is he goes and makes a copy of the policies, and then he'll send an email. Hey, would you like the policy to be sent to you, the agent, or directly to the client? And then from there, delivery receipts and things of that nature. So the process as it is today, team, your applications, once they've been approved and once the policies have been mailed, they get mailed to Austin, Ed Tanzer. So if you have a question about your application, you can reach out to your FML, your TDL, or Ed directly for anything that you need from an application. So that's where they are housed at today. Thank you, Jennifer and Amy.
Perfect. And then new business process, we briefly touched on, turnaround times or service level agreements. As you can see here, most business functions are completed within a 24 to 48 hour time period. That's business hours. Obviously, we work 8 hours a day, get to go home, have a little bit of time with our families and get some rest, and we do not work weekends. So it's important to understand the 24 to 48 hours is not true hours, it's business hours. So most of the functions at a new business level are happening within that time frame. Transfer follow-up. Transfer follow-up is performed by Emeritus about 7 to 10 business days after the transfer is sent. Now, while Emeritus does make every attempt to do that transfer follow-up, more and more companies are no longer releasing information to what they're calling third parties. So even though Emeritus has sent a transfer request requesting funds with a letter of acceptance, they are still considered a third party, and because of privacy laws, a lot of companies are no longer releasing that information. So again, this is where, it's very, very important for you as the agent to understand and be ready to get your client on the line, do a joint call to the transfer company, Get your status on what's going on with the transfer. Have you gotten it? Is it in good order? Is there anything that's needed? And then the client has the opportunity to express their want to move the monies. So, again, while Emeritus is going to make every attempt, really the client getting on the line with you and really calling the transfer company is the key to getting the money transferred more quickly. And then who to contact, when you have an application. And Amy touched on that when we were kind of going over the life cycle of the application. Just wanted to take another minute just to kind of go over that again. The suitability help desk hours are 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. That's Amy and I here at Legacy. So you can either email us, give us a call if you want to fax in requirements. This really pertains to the suitability process. So if you have a question about a case that you have in-house that's sitting in suitability, you've gotten an email from one of us, you need clarity on something, you wanted to discuss, some requirements that you didn't quite understand, Amy and I are your point of contact for that. Now, once suitability has been approved and you've gotten that approval email that says it's approved, we're sending it over to Emeritus, any other contact should be done to Emeritus New Business directly. Their hours of operation currently are 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time. They're responsive via email. I've put their email address here, their phone, their fax number. You would call them to check status of the case. What's the most recent, things going on? Have you done a transfer follow-up? Has money been received that maybe, you haven't alerted me? They're going to be your point of contact for items such as that. So I know that we have talked a lot about in good order. Because that's what we're all striving for, is to get that gold star to, submit something that's in good order where you don't have to make any corrections or have any type of interaction. However, there are some typical not in good orders, or what we call NIGOs. And so we've kind of listed out a few here. What we've seen is maybe the incorrect jurisdiction or state is used when creating the application in FireLight. An application indicates a non-replacement when in fact it is replacing. That's what we talked about when we kind of went over the replacement and non-replacement definitions. Benefit or rationale behind the replacement is missing or inadequate. We're really looking for you to tell us the story behind the sale when a replacement is involved. What key benefits and features are the client taking advantage of with the Emeritus annuity that maybe they're not getting with the existing annuity? In cases where a PO box is being used on the application, we always need a physical address. So it's important to, provide that. Owner and or agent existing life insurance or annuity questions are answered incorrectly when we're looking at the assets listed on page 1 of the annuity suitability questionnaire. So if we're noticing that you have an asset listed in life insurance or annuities, but yet you said no, the client says, no, I don't have annuities or life insurance, and you as the agent mark, no, they do not, we're going to question you on that. And that seems to be a very common theme. Signatures, owner's signature incorrect, spouse's signature incorrect. Most recent or unexpired government issued identification is missing. Most recent statement is missing. Illustration is missing, or just globally the incorrect tax qualification used for an application. Did you have anything to add to that, Amy, that maybe I'm missing?
No, I mean, those are the typical ones. I mean, obviously can be a whole host of NIGOs, but these are the bigger ones that we see.
Okay. And then Amy, did you want to go ahead and talk about special requests or requests outside of normal processing?
Yeah, so, if there's a request, like I just had a case actually that I reviewed, and the cover sheet included very detailed handling on the sequence of the transfer. You know, that is, and it was uploaded to the case. That's very helpful. So if there is, you've done an e-signature transfer paperwork, but there's a wet signature required, and you're going to be sending that in later with the medallion signature guarantee, uploading an additional letter of explanation to the case with those special instructions or special requests. We're doing our own transfer, but we need an LOA from Emeritus. Any kind of request like that can be uploaded to go over to the case. Jen and I will be able to see it. We can note it on the suitability approval. And then we can make sure that that is communicated to Emeritus. So, if you have any questions around, those are the basic special requests. If you have kind of anything that seems a little bit unusual, I would definitely reach out to your FIA team or Jen and I if it's something kind of out of the norm. But the normal special requests are for transfer requests, that, maybe there's a specific form used by the other company that Emeritus needs to sign in Section 5 and send back to you. Those kind of things, as long as it's clearly communicated, we can get those special requests done for you.
Perfect. And that's it. So do we have any questions that that we want to try to get fielded here in the next 10 minutes, Joe?
Yeah, I think we've done a pretty good job handling the questions in the chat. So, here's what I'll say, team. First of all, Jen and Amy, thank you for your time, and thank you for your partnership. We know that the FIA business is important to all of us. It's right. It's important to you as your individual agents. It's important to your clients as they're trying to navigate the ups and downs of a volatile market. We want to make sure that you have the support that you need in order for you to be able to ask, right, and help Mr. and Mrs. Jones with some of the things that might be pressing to them, and that might be their uncomfortableness with the market and where their retirement is. So it's up to us to make sure that we're asking the right questions. And then once we get that appointment and we're able to set that appointment with your FML, your TDL, or somebody from the FIA team, myself, Ron, Bonnie, whomever, we get that application submitted. What's most important is making sure that it's in good order, right? It's in good order because Mr. and Mrs. Jones asked for this, right? They agreed that this is the program that they want to move forward with, and so we need to make sure that we're doing all of our due diligence on the front end to make it as clean as possible, so they can enjoy the benefits of the fixed indexed annuity that they asked for. So our partnership, our relationship with Legacy Emeritus is very, very unique, and I'm starting to really get to know Jennifer, Amy, Chris, and everybody over at Emeritus as well too. And we continue to get better with our application process because we continue to submit applications. Like I said earlier on, 168 applications already submitted year to date, and that's just coming out of the first quarter. I think we were at somewhere around 420 last year or something like that. 77 agents are already participating in the FIA this year is amazing. It's great. So we're here to make sure that we support you throughout your business here at AMBA, and making sure that when you do submit an application, you have the confidence that it's going to get from submission to issue in a timely manner, so Mr. and Mrs. Jones can take advantage of whatever indices that they decided to make, the choices they decided to make. So we appreciate the partnership, Jennifer, Amy. Thank you guys. Looking forward to our upcoming trainings as well too. These recordings will be housed on our SharePoint. We'll make sure that you get it. We'll put it on Slack as well too, so everybody has a copy of it. But again, I'll just reiterate, the FIA team, Gary, Jack, Matt, myself, Ron and Bonnie, we're all in the pool. Your TDLs, they're supporting you along the way as well. your field marketing leaders, right? Shoulder to shoulder, Zoom to Zoom, making sure that, you're helping Mr. and Mrs. Jones with their fixed indexed annuities. It's been great to see this first quarter of all the activity and all the excitement that we have around FIA. Jennifer and Amy giving us the resources and the understanding and the support to make sure that when we do submit those applications, they go in good order. Hey, we're not going to be perfect, right? We're not, and it's okay. Nobody is, but make sure that, I know, make sure that, you just know that you have the support, that you need in order for us to do what we need to do in order to be as efficient and effective for Mr. and Mrs. Jones as we possibly can. So appreciate that. Give you a few minutes back tonight, and let's continue to ask, load those appointments up with the FIA team, and continue to ask. And I want to see who's going to be on that leaderboard next week. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful night. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.